everyone, it's Iain at RTO here. Hope you're all well on this Wednesday morning. This is the third attempt at doing this. Doorbell went, the back screen collapsed. It's going to be one of them days, I think. So today, Marathon Wednesday, it's another request from one of you guys, and we're today looking at the studio albums of the metal gods themselves, Judas Priest. I've been around a few years, haven't they? 1969 they were formed. Sold over 50 million albums. Had a few people in the band, mostly drummers, believe it or not. I've had 3 or 4 drummers, 2 singers, and 2 or 3 guitarists. They had a bit of controversial news they announced earlier on, didn't they, about when they tour again they're going to be a 4-piece band, which absolutely freaked everybody out, including myself. But with the fans going on and everyone on YouTube giving it, well, what are you doing? All of a sudden, I said Andy Sneap will now be touring with us, and it's a good thing because, you know, poor old Glenn can't go on stage as much as he used to. But Andy Sneap, good producer, good guitar player, is pretty cool, and he steps in and helps out. So we've got 18 albums to look at today, so we'll get a cracking. So coming in at number 18, we have the 13th album. It was released in 1997, Jugulator. It was the first album without Rob Halford, and vocals on this is Tim Ripper Owens. So the band was Tim Ripper Owens on vocals, KK Downing on guitars, Glenn Tipton on the guitars, Ian Hill on the bass, and Scott Travis on the drum kit. Opening track is Jugulator. Well, all I can say is about this, it's just crash, bang, wallop and screaming. That's all I can say about that track. So you know I'm not very keen on it. Bloodstained. This is not a bad track actually. Probably one of the better ones on the album. I don't mind listening to that one. Dead Meat. Now all the tracks on this album sound the same. It's just crash, bang, wallop, scream, and Dead Meat's one of them as well. Same with Death Row. Again, it's got no melody, no great riffing. It's just ordinary. Decapitate. Another crash, bang, wallop, scream. Burning Hell. One of the better tracks. It's actually got a bit of a melody. It's got a bit of something about it, and I don't mind that one. Brain Dead. Again, I don't like it. The vocal on it is terrible. Well, it's not vocal, is it? It's more of a screech. And I've said this before, when Ripper sings, it's good. When he screeches, it's terrible. Abductors isn't too bad. It's not brilliant though. Bullet Train, again, I don't like this. This is just crash, bang, wallop, Ripper screaming. I don't like it. Where's the guitar riffs? Where's the great soloing? It doesn't exist. Then we get the last track, which is the best track on the album, Cathedral Spires. I don't mind this track. This is proper old. This is Priest, a good Priest song. Okay, as an album, one of the worst albums. This is their worst album without a doubt. It's just too much crash, bang, wallop, a total thing. I don't know what they were trying to do. Painkiller, different direction, great album, great vocals. This, no. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 3 out of 10. Okay then, coming in at number 17, we go to the 11th album, released in May 1988, Ram It Down. This was the last album that featured drummer Dave Holland. So we've got Rob Halford on the vocals, KK and Glenn on guitars, and synthesizers with Glenn, Ian Hill and Dave Holland. First track is Ram It Down. One of the better songs on this. I like this, some great riffs, great guitar solo, pretty good. Heavy Metal. It's not too bad. The production on the vocals is horrible. You can't really understand what Rob is trying to say. But it's a mediocre track. Love Zone. The drums on this are terrible. Now I do know some of the drumming on this was done on a drum machine, and I think this may be one of them because the drums just sound horrible. Come and Get It. Very plastic metal. Well, that's a funny expression, but it's just the production is terrible on it. Hard as Iron. This one's not too bad. It's listenable. Blood Red Skies. Best track on the album this is. The production's pretty naff low, but the song itself is great. I've heard it live a few times, and again it sounds one of them tracks from this album that sounds really good live. I'm a Rocker. Heavy 80s heavy metal production on it is terrible. The 1980s, I keep saying this, was the worst era for heavy metal because some Burke thought it'd be okay to clean it up. Behave. Then we got the worst song that they ever recorded in their entire life, a cover of Johnny Be Good that sounds absolutely terrible. Love You to Death. The riffs are good, but the drums are terrible. Then we get Monster to Rock to end off the album. It's a bit cheesy, but it's got a great solo in it. I think this is probably the worst produced album by Judas Priest. Again, it's got that 80s sound that just didn't suit heavy rock metal. And I think the drumming, Priest wanted to go in a different direction, and Dave Holland's drumming was not that sort of style. You got to remember, this is a guy that's done very just solid rock stuff, and I don't think, well, it was the writing on the cards for him. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 5 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 16, we're going to the 14th album, released in 2001, Demolition. It was the second and final album to feature Tim Ripper Owens. So we got KK, Glenn, Ian, Scott. An additional musician on here, if you can hear him, is Don Airy on the keyboards. Yes, I've been trying to listen. There's a couple of you can hear him, but there isn't not much you can really. First track is Machine Man. Now this track could be good, but it's weird. You've got Scott Travis playing some awesome drums, but everyone's trying to keep up with him. It just doesn't sound right. And then we get One on One, one of the better songs from on this album. I like that one. I love the real heavy riff in it, and even Ripper sounds good on that. Hell Is Home. No, I'm not very keen on that one. Then we get my favourite track. I love Jekyll and Hyde. It's got a great guitar solo, one of the best guitar solos from this era. And Ripper does a good vocal on that. Close to You. It's okay. Devil Digger, no great riffing, but singing's terrible on it. Bloodsuckers, that's not too bad. I can cope with that one. In Between, no, don't like it. Feed Me, don't like it at all. I can't listen to it. Subterfuge, again, very, very mediocre. Lost and Found, I find this quite irritating. Again, I can't listen to it. Cyberface, I don't mind that one. I don't mind that one at all. Metal Messiah, again it's Crash Bang Wallop. Okay, this is a tad better than Jugulator, but not by much. There's some more melodic songs on this one, but the other stuff is just not very good. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 5.5. Okay then, coming in at number 15, we go to the 16th album. It's the last album to feature KK Downing, and it's Nostradamus. A double album and a concept. Yes. So we've got Rob Halford on the vocals, KK on the guitars and synthesizer, Glenn Tipton on guitars and synthesizer, Ian Hill on bass, Scott Travis on the drums, Don Airy on keyboards, Peter Whitfield on strings. This is not Judas Priest, it's got strings in it. Okay then, Dawn of Creation opens up the album. I like this, it's one of them sort of eerie, atmospheric sort of preludes to the album. Pretty good. Prophecy, I do like this track. Best track on this non-eventful album. Awakening, this is a little filler thing, doesn't do anything for me. Revelations, it's not too bad. It's got some nice guitar work from Glenn and KK, pretty good. Then we get the Four Horsemen, another of these one little short in. Yeah, move on. War. This is more of a progressive metal track than a heavy metal track, but I don't mind it. It's not too bad. Sands of Time, I just find this hard to follow. Pestilence and Plague, it's alright. Death, I struggle with this track, it doesn't seem to go anywhere. Peace, by this time listening to this album, I'm starting to lose the will to live. It's getting dour, it's getting boring. Conquest isn't too bad. Lost Love doesn't do anything for me. Persecution, the best bit of this is the keyboards at the beginning, but that's about it. Then we go on to disc 2. Solitude, dull, boring. Exiled, next, so mediocre. Alone, I don't like this track at all. There's nothing there that really makes me want to listen to it. Shadows in the Flame, again I'm starting to still struggle with this. Visions, the best track on the second disc. It is a really good track, like that one. Hope, short little bits I don't get. New Beginnings is just a dirge, it's so boring. Calm Before the Storm, another of these filler tracks. Title track Nostradamus, it's not bad, it's one of the better tracks on the album. And Future of Mankind, its guitar solos are alright, but it's the only best thing about it, and the best thing about this is the end of the album. The trouble with this, it's just far too long. You can't listen to this all the way through and enjoy it, because it just meanders. Now, if they'd have taken the best tracks from both albums, because there are some good tracks on this, and just made it a single album, I think we'd have had a half decent album. But when half the album is just, I just can't get on with it. There's people out there that love this album, I know, but I just struggle with this. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 6 out of 10. Okay then, coming in at number 14, we got the debut album, released in 1974, Rocka Rolla. It's the only album to feature drummer John Hitch. So we've got Rob Halford, KK Downing, Glenn Tipton, Ian Hill and John Hitch. One for the Road opens up the album. Basic rock track this is, because this is nothing heavy metal at all. Great bass and guitar in that. Love that. Then we get Rocka Rolla. I love this. Always have loved this track. Great guitar work here from KK and Glenn. Absolutely belter of a track. Then we get this little ditty called Winter. It's just a nice little bit of guitar. I don't mind that. And then Deep Freeze, another short track with good twin guitar on it. Winter Retreat. There's some quite good riffs in this. That metal sound is sort of hovering. Cheetah, very early heavy metal track, but with harmonica, which isn't too bad. Never Satisfied, again the sound that we'd come to love with Priest was there. Run of the Mill, good track, an early runner, a victim of changes, I think. Dying to Meet You, Hero Hero, It's Okay. Then we got Caviar and Meths. This is quite proggy, and I like that track. Okay, this is not a heavy. This is more heavy rock than metal. They'd laid the foundations to what was to come, and I do like this album a lot. So I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 6.5. Okay, coming in at number 13, we go to the 7th album, released in 1981, Point of Entry. This has got Rob on it, KK, Glenn, Iain and Dave on the drums. First track, Heading Out Onto the Highway. Classic Priest track, great riffs, thumping bass line. Iain Hill is on his best, that one. Don't Go, again, great bass line from Iain Hill. Terrific stuff. Hot Rockin'. I love the guitar work on what is not a particularly a brilliant track for me. I'm not very keen on that one. Turning Circles, it's alright. Desert Plains is a classic track. Love this track. My favourite track on the album. Fantastic track that one is. Solar Angels isn't too bad. One of the weaker songs. You Say Yes, not particularly good either, really. All the Way, very filler. Troubleshooter, pretty mediocre. It's just bog standard heavy metal, isn't it? On the Run, great vocal from Rob on this. Pretty good guitar solo, it's okay. Thunder Road, quite heavy in places, but so I like it. Okay, I don't think this is the best sort of album. They recorded it in Ibiza. I think they was having too much fun, not concentrating on what they were actually there for. Has got some good tracks on it, but it's pretty, after the previous album, this is pretty mediocre. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 6.8. Okay, coming in at number 12, we go to the 15th album, released in 2005. It was the return of the metal god, Rob Halford, Angel of Retribution. So we've got Rob Halford, KK Downing, Glenn Tipton, Iain Hill and Scott Travis. Additional musician was Don Airy on the keyboards. Opens up with the brilliant Judas Rising. I love this. The riffs and the drumming in this are fantastic. Deal with the Devil, another great track. Love the guitar work. Just great metal. Revolution, it's okay. It's not brilliant, but solid. Worth Fighting For. Great bass line from Iain Hill. Scott Travis, On Fire. Good stuff. Demonizer, fast and furious metal. Great track. Great vocal from Rob. Wheels of Fire, solid enough. Angel, one of the slow tracks, but it's just not do anything for me. Hell Rider, absolutely brilliant track. Great drumming here from Scott. Rob's vocal is amazing on that. Absolutely brilliant. Eulogy. I don't like this at all. It's dirge. And then talking of dirge, there's Loch Ness. Just 13 minutes of boredom. Ooh. Okay. Bit of a mixed bag one on this. It's great to hear Rob back in the band, but the last two tracks just don't need to be there. They're so boring. But I like the other tracks. They're not too bad at all. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 11. This is probably my controversial one in the Priest catalogue. A lot of people don't like this album. I like some of the tracks on it. It's the 10th album, released in 1986. Turbo. Rob Halford, KK, Glenn, Iain, Dave. We've got some backing vocals by Jeff Martin. Opens up with Turbo Lover. A lot of people don't like this track. I love it. I love Glenn Tipton's solo on this. It's fantastic. Even with the guitar synth, it sounds fantastic. Great track. And now they still sort of do it, and it sounds even better now because it's just pure guitar. It's a great track. Next we get Locked In. Another great track. Love KK's guitar work on this. It's brilliant, fantastic. Private Property. Well, apart from that synthy crap at the start, I like the riff in it. Parent Guidance. No, you can throw that one away. 80s metal. Then we get Rock You Round the World. Another track that should be put in the bin and forgotten about. Then we get Out in the Cold, my favourite track off this album. I even like the synthy sound at the beginning. It's one of my favourite tracks by Judas Priest. I just love it. It's a fantastic track. Wild Nights, Hot Crazy Days, it's okay. Hot for Love, again another one that should be thrown in a bin and dumped on under the ground. Reckless, I like this, solid rock track. As I said, a lot of fans don't like this, but I like it in parts. Okay, Priest were experimenting with the guitar synths. I mean, they're not the only band to. Iron Maiden did at the time. But some of these tracks are very 80s metal rock, so they're pretty weak. But the ones I do like are fine. You know, Out in the Cold, Turbo, Lover, Locked In and Reckless are pretty strong tracks. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.3. Okay, then coming in at number 10, probably controversial again. It's the 6th album, released in 1980. British Steel, first album to feature Dave Holland. Rob Halford, KK Downing, Glenn Tipton, Ian Hill and Dave Holland. Opens up. Rapid fire. Love this. Love that guitar play between KK and Glenn. Really great stuff. Thundering start to the album. Metal Gods. Great anthem. Fantastic. That bit at the end with the marching feet, you know, actually sounds like a battalion, but it's actually someone dropping a cutlery in one of them plastic things, dropping the cutlery on a table. Great effects from the 1980s. Now, I've got the classic album DVD of this, and they explain it. They show you what they did. They just literally picked up a train and great. Next track, Breaking the Law. Classic Priest track without a doubt, but if I don't hear it again, I won't get upset. Then we get my favourite track, Grinder. Great riffs from Glenn and KK. Great vocal from Roth. Love that track. United. Yep. Load of rubbish. Hate it. Don't know. Next track, You Don't Have to Be Old to Be Wise. Mediocre track. I'm not very keen on that one. Never have been. Living After Midnight. Another of them great classic songs, but it gets played to death. But I will say it's always great hearing it live. The Rage. This is an interesting arrangement. Great bass line from Iain. It sounds more like the Police than heavy metal. Well, I don't mind it. Steeler. Another great track to end the album. Okay, back in the day, I think everybody thought this one was the bee's knees. It was that breakthrough album, and it was a great heavy metal album at the time. But when you listen to it now, I think it's not as good as I thought it was when I was 13. I still like the album. I still play it. But, you know, they have released better albums. But this was the one that broke them through to mainstream. So it's a very affectionate album. It's an album of my youth. So I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 7.8. Okay, then coming in at number 9, we go to the 17th album, released in 2014. First album without KK. First album with Richie Faulkner, Redeemer of Souls. Rob Halford, Glenn Tipton, Richie Faulkner, Ian Hill and Scott Travis. Opens up with Dragonaut. Solid track this is. Love the guitar riffs. Some great solos in this. Unbelievable track. Redeemer of Souls, another good track. Rob's on fire. His voice is so good. Solid track. The Halls of Valhalla, classic track. One of the modern classic tracks of Priest. Great stuff. Sword of the Damocles, or Democles, I don't know how to pronounce that. Cracking riffs again from Richie and Glenn. Richie fits into this band really well. He sort of put a bit of breath of fresh air into them. It's an excellent track. My favourite track comes in March of the Damned. Belter, proper Priest. Great vocal from Rob. Great drums. Ian Hill's bass is thundering. Great stuff. Down in Flames. One of the weaker tracks on this album, but it's okay. Hell and Back. One of a bit of a filler. I'm sorry, it doesn't. It's just like they're going through the motions on that one. Cold Blooded, solid track, some great riffs in that. Metalizer, Scott Travis driving drums, but that's only the real highlight of that. Crossfire, it's okay, nothing special. Secrets of Death, it's okay, a little bit boring. Battle Cry, another great riff, great vocal from Rob. Beginning and the End, bit of a filler for me. Okay, first good outing for Richie Faulkner. Although I think there's too many albums on this, by about 3 or 4. If they'd have got rid of, if them 3 or 4 weaker tracks had gone, I would have probably put this album higher. But it's still got solid tracks on it, so I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 7.9. Okay then, coming in at number 8, we go to the third album released in 1977, Sin After Sin. The only album that featured Simon Phillips, who does get around a bit, does our Simon. So we got Rob Halford, KK Downing, Glenn Tipton, Ian Hill, Simon Phillips. First track on here is Sinner. Love this track. Great vocal from Rob. Brilliant. Diamonds and Rust. I don't like this. I really don't. I don't know what they do this for. I just don't like it. I prefer Joan Baez's version. I know there's people out there that love this, but it's not for me. Let me get my favourite track, Starbreaker. Love the riffs on this. It's hard, it's heavy. Great vocal from Rob, of course. Last Rose of Summer. I do like this. I love the guitar work, and it's a little bit different, and I like it. Let Us Pray, Call for the Priest. Oh, classic early Priest this is. Fast, furious metal. Early heavy metal here. Great stuff. Raw Deal, another great song. Great drumming from Simon Phillips on this. What a versatile drummer this guy is. Excellent track. Here Comes the Tears, another slower track, but it's not a favourite of mine. The Dissident Aggressor, again, but for real first sort of speed metal from in 1977. Really good track. This album is pretty good. There are a few slower tracks on here than rockers. I don't mind one, but two or three doesn't really go on me. But it's still a great album, and I love listening to it. And I'll give it an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 7, we've got the 18th and most recent album, released in 2018. It's Firepower. Rob, Glenn, Richie, Iain and Scott. Opens up with the title track Firepower. Love this. Very heavy, hard hitting, brilliant stuff. Second track, Lightning Strike. Love the riffs in this. Rob's vocals are on fire. Superb track. Evil Never Dies. Another solid track. Great riffing from Glenn and Richie. It's great stuff. Never the Hero. Solid heavy metal. Again, great drumming. Great bass. Necromancer. Love this track. Killer vocal from Rob. Thundering bass from Ian Hill. Booming drums from Scott. What more do you need? Children of the Sun. Great Priest. Absolutely out the top drawer. Guardians. Okay, it's keyboard and twin guitar. Sounds amazing. Rising from the Ruins. I love this track. My favourite off the album. Them riffs are so heavy. Even the bass from Ian Hill is just thumping. Great bass player is Ian Hill. Flamethrower, more classic riffs and licks. Glenn Tipton, fantastic. Even though he struggles to play, he can still play some great stuff. Spectre, solid. Traitor's great. Classic Priest. Rob sounds brilliant on this. No Surrender, probably the weakest track on the album. Lone Wolf, solos, pretty good. Sea of the Red, I call that Loch Ness too. I think this is the best album since Rob came back. They progressed as they went on. Richie Faulkner really, second album, really established now. It's come up with some great riffs and songs. Fantastic album. Play this again to death. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.3. This is where I started to struggle, because all these albums I love them all. It's just getting them in the right order. It took a lot to get this right because I changed it so many times. So coming in at number 6, I need a drink first though. Go to the second album, released in 1976. Sad Wings of Destiny. It was the only album to feature Alan Moore on the drums. So we've got Rob, KK, Glenn, Iain and Alan Moore. Opens up with one of my favourite tracks ever by Judas Priest, Victim of Changes. Some great drumming from Alan Moore. Great interplay between KK and Glenn, and Rob puts a sterling vocal in. Let me get the Ripper. Love that double guitar riff at the beginning from KK and Glenn. Classic. Love it to death. Demon Deceiver. One hell of a incredible vocal from Rob on here. It's one of them so slower tracks, but his vocals are just top draw. Deceiver, cracking track. Absolutely brilliant. Great work between Glenn and KK on that. Prelude, piano on a Priest album, but it's quite good because it goes into the another great track. Tyrant, again one of my favourite tracks by Judas Priest. Really, really good stuff. Genocide, more of those great driving Priest riffs that we've come to love. Great stuff. Epitaph, probably the worst song on this album. They're still sort of trying to find out what they want to do, but I don't like that one at all. Island of Domination, another great track. This is, you know, this is the direction we knew that they were going to go in, and it's a great way to end the album. So this again is a very different from the debut album, but it laid the foundations of what we come to know as heavy metal. There was so much potential in this, and I love it. And I gave this an RTO ranking of 8.5. Okay, coming in at number 5, we have the 5th album, released on the 9th of October 1978. Released on my birthday, and it's the Killing Machine. It was the last studio album to feature drummer Les Binks. So we got Rob Halford, KK Downing, Glenn Tipton, Ian Hill and Les Binks. First track, the brilliant Delivering the Goods. Great riffs. Rob's vocal brilliant. Then we got Rock Forever, short little rocker, excellent track. Evening Star, some great riffs. The interplay between Glenn and KK on that is great. Then we get the brilliant Hellbent for Leather. Classic start to an album track. It feels like you've got the power of the bike. I mean, of course, when they do this live, Rob comes out on the bike and gives it large. But I do love that guitar solo in the middle. The interplay between Glenn and KK on that is fantastic. Okay, it gets played to death, and everyone loves it. To me, it's a track that I'll have, if I'm to do a playlist, this is always on it. Priest playlist, Hellbent for Leather. Pretty good. Then we get a track that I don't like, Take on the World. It's just that cheesy. They sometimes do come up with some clangers. Burning Up, another great track. The drumming from Les Binks on this is absolutely brilliant, and the guitar solo is good. Then we get the Green Manalishi with a two-prong crown. I love both versions of this. I love the original by Fleetwood Mac, great bluesy version, and I love Priests for the heaviest version. Great song. I love both versions of this song. This one just pushes it though. It's a great version. Then we get the title track, Killing Machine. Solid riffs again. Absolutely belting. Running Wild, solid track, strong riffs again. Great vocal from Rob. Before the Dawn. I love the guitar solo on this, but the track itself I'm not very keen on. Evil Fantasies. From that opening riff, then you get that great bit of drumming, and the layers and the vocals come through with a thumpy bass. Hell of a good track. Another great album, although some of these slower tracks I'm not very keen on, I'm afraid. But the rockers are great. I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.5. Okay then, coming in at number 4, we go to the 8th album, released in 1982, Screaming for Vengeance. Now it opens up, there's two separate tracks, but to me it's all one. It's the Iain, so I'm going to do them together. The Iain and Electric Eye. Electric Eye. Love that opening on the Iain. Great start, and then it goes booming straight into Electric Eye. These two are my favourite tracks on the album. The Electric Eye is blinding. Great Priest classic. Great stuff. Then we get Riding on the Wind. Solid track. Don't mind that one at all. A little bit different. Bloodstone, still a bit of 80s drum on this, but it's not a bad track. Then we get Take These Chains. Yeah, it's a good song. Not bad at all. Pain and Pleasure. It's okay. Screaming for Vengeance. Great song. Rob's voice in this is brilliant. As it says, Screaming for Vengeance, and boy does Rob scream. Then we get You've Got Another Thing Coming. Okay, Play to Death, but it's a great track. Love it. Just love seeing this live. I just love that really good bass line and riff from the lads. Absolutely brilliant. Fever, one of the slower tracks, but it's got some absolutely screeching guitar work. Both solos on here are brilliant from both Glenn and KK. Rob's on fire. Fantastic track. Devil's Child. I love this. Absolutely thumping stuff. Great bass line, and Rob's vocal is brilliant. This is certainly a better album than Point of Entry. They recorded this one in Ibiza as well, but they actually got down to what they were there for. I love listening to this album. It's full of short, sharp, punchy tracks. Even some of the weaker tracks are good, because it's just, when you play them together, it's a solid album. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.6. Okay then, coming in at number 3. Go to the 12th album, 1990. Painkiller. First album to feature Judas Priest, Scott Travis, first one. Rob Halford's last album until 2005. So we got Rob, KK, Glenn and Iain. Additional keyboards from Don Airy. Painkiller, first track. What an introduction for Scott Travis. Absolutely belting drums on this. I love that track. Classic, isn't it now? Absolute classic. I saw them on this tour, and boy were they good. Hell Patrol, another brilliant track. Love Scott's drumming on this, and a great vocal from Rob. All Guns Blazing, belter. Absolute belter. Leather Rebel, classic track. Love that riff in that. Brilliant stuff. Priest at their best. Metal Meltdown. Starts off with that double guitar solo at the beginning, and the riffs are just so strong. Nightcrawler, a little bit different, a little bit eerie. Fantastic though. Then we get my favourite track, the fantastic Between the Hammer and the Anvil. I love this effects on this. It's like you can feel the clunk of the metal. The riffs are good, and the solos are just blinding. Touch of Evil, another classic track. Strong stuff, great vocal from Rob. Some more strong riffs. Battle Hymn, just a short piece, Showboat for Glenn and KK. On a One Shot at Glory, that familiar double guitar riff at the beginning from both guitarists, and that screechy solo. Love this track. This is a fantastic album. Great return to form after Ram It Down and Turbo, I suppose. Great performance by Scott Travis on his debut with the band. But a sadly we wouldn't see Rob until 2005. As the thing, did he want to leave? He didn't want to leave, and I think there was a lot of cross wires. If you've read Rob's book, but I love this album, and I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 8.9. Okay, then coming in at number 2, 9th album, released in 1984, Defenders of the Faith. Rob Halford, KK Downing, Glenn Tipton, Ian Hill and Dave Holland. Opens up with the great Free Wheel Burning. Fast, furious, great start. With one of their fast and heaviest tracks of the time. Excellent track. Jawbreaker, great track. Yeah, listen to the lyrics are a bit rude, but then again, this is Rob Halford, who was still quite hadn't come out, and I mean, if you've read the book, you'll understand the story behind this song. But it just shows Rob Halford's frustrations about things and everything. But it's a great song. Then we get Rock Hard, Free Ride, another great track. Great solo from Glenn on this. Brilliant. Then we get the fantastic The Sentinel. Favourite track on this, one of my favourite tracks again by this band. I love Rob's vocal on it. It's screechy, it's high, it's awesome. Dave Holland's drumming on this, it's pretty good. I think it's one of his best drum performances with Judas Priest. Absolutely kills it. Then we get Love Bites. Okay, this track is a little bit different. Some people don't like it. I do. The best bit in this is the bit in the middle when you get the drums and the bass, and then you get Glenn and KK coming in with that great guitar riff. It's got a great guitar solo. Eat Me Alive, again thumping. Lots of great guitar licks and riffs from KK and Glenn. Some Heads Are Gonna Roll. It's okay. It's a bit of an anthem, isn't it? Thumping your fist and all that sort of thing. It's okay. Night Comes Down. Don't mind that one. It's pretty solid. Heavy Duty. Love the riffs in this. It may be a little bit cheesy, but I love the guitar work in it. It's pretty strong. Then Defenders of the Faith. Again, it's a bit cheesy, but it's still a solid track. I love this album. Unfortunately, I think the last 2 tracks are the weakest tracks, but it doesn't make them bad tracks. And I think this is why this isn't my number 1. It's these 2 tracks that sort of how do I put it? Play this album a lot, but the last 2 very, very, very rarely play all the way through. But I still think it's a fantastic album, so I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 9 out of 10. Well, if you haven't guessed, if you're a big Priest fan, my number 1 album is the 4th album, recorded in 1978. Stained Class. First album that featured Les Binks on the drums. So we've got Rob Halford, KK Downing, Glenn Tipton, Ian Hill and Les Binks. Opens up with the fantastic Exciter. One of my favourite tracks by Judas Priest, without a doubt. The vocal from Rob is brilliant. He's absolutely on fire, like he is for the whole album. His shrieking is just so powerful, and the drums from Les Binks are brilliant on this. Great track, my favourite on the album. Second track, another great track, White Heat. Again, Rob's vocal is brilliant. You got some driving riffs from Glenn and KK. That thumping driving bass line from Iain Hill. Then we get a cover, and it's a great cover. It's a Spooky Tooth number, and it's Better by You, Better Than Me. I love this version. I like the Spooky Tooth version as well, but this is that track that nearly got them into a lot of trouble, wasn't it, with them two guys that shot themselves after listening to this, and they were, you know, with the satanic backwards. That's where Rob found, when he played it backwards, I suck a peppermint. Now, the way that the prosecution went with this, they thought that they obviously didn't do their homework, because every Priest fan knows that they didn't write this. It was wrote by a guy called Gary Wright from Spooky Tooth, but Priest got the blame for it, and I'm so that that common sense prevailed in the end. But you know, first thing that the prosecution should have done was find out who actually wrote it, just because they didn't listen to the Judas Priest version. But that's how balmy America is. But it's a great track, love that track. Then we get the title track, Staying Class, belter. Love the riffs on this. Strong, great, and again a great bass line for me, and he's on absolute fire on this album. Then we get another brilliant song, Invader. It's just great, absolutely brilliant stuff. That double guitar, the bass working well together. Them three work so well together. Then we get Saints in Hell, that signature double guitar riff at the beginning from Priest. And then you get the bass again, just adds to the layers to this great song. Priest at their best. Savage. Rob's on fire. What a vocal on this. Thumping bass line on for me, and again great stuff. And then you get the best slow track, their slowest tracks, one of their best. So, you know, this and Out in the Cold are the best. Out in the Cold from the later era, this from the early days, Beyond the Realms of Death. It's just brilliant. I just love everything about it. I love the dun, you know, the short sharp bits, the great vocal, great solos, brilliant. Then the album ends with Hero's End. Again, brilliant, great guitar solo in this, just mind-blowing stuff. Now, this album, I mean, it's 1978. The word heavy metal hadn't really come, but this is masterful. This is just, I think this is Priest at their best. I mean, they have made, I mean, all through their career they've made great albums, but from that early era, this is probably the best, and it is my favourite album by them, because every track is brilliant. I just love this album, play it all the time. So I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 9.5. Okay, another good selection request. Still got a few to do. We're getting there, guys, but we will run out in about 3 or 4 weeks time. So if anyone's got any good ideas for these nice long big catalogues, let me know and I will do whatever band you ask. That's all for today. I'll be back tomorrow. Can't believe we're at Thursday again. Tomorrow is Then and Now, and we're going to be looking at one of the most underrated bands from the beginning of the heavy metal new wave of British heavy metal, Tigers of Pang Tang. Great band, very consistent. They had a little bit of a wobble in the 80s like most metal bands did, but they're still a great band today. And tomorrow's album artwork is the Scorpions. Now, tomorrow's, instead of going from the worst to the best, we're going it from the best to the worst, because I think of all the bands I've listened to, the album work of Scorpions is probably some of the worst. So we're going to do it from their, we're going to look at from their best album right up to their worst. So I've got some of their live albums, a couple of compilations. It's basically my collection because they've had so many compilations. So something to look forward to. I will see you all tomorrow. Have a great day.